Acts chapter 11, and let's start with verse 28. And there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be a great dearth or drought throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. What we see in verse 27 is the prophet Agabus and a group of prophets. Notice that the word prophet is plural in verse 27. A group of prophets arriving in Antioch to edify, exhort, and comfort the church. The Apostle Paul, when he described prophecy in the book of 1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter, he said what? Prophecy edifies, exhorts, and comforts. Part of edification is what? Learning the basics of the true gospel. Exhortation is providing direction for the church, and comfort is providing help for the church. Now, what does Agabus say? He said there's going to be a major drought that's going to hit the region. So Agabus is really exhorting the church, giving them a direction in which they need to go, which is what? To prepare themselves for the drought and to prepare the poor saints in Jerusalem for the upcoming drought as well. The Lord, through prophecy, could let us know in advance about things that are going to happen, not for the purpose of scaring us, but for the purpose of preparing us for what's going to happen so we can be prepared when it happens, so we can be able to withstand what comes our way. The prophetic word, it can help us through hard times before the hard times even begins. This compares to what? Pharaoh and Joseph way back in the book of Genesis, where the Lord warned Pharaoh through Joseph about the long drought that was about to happen. Here, the prophet Agabus, he warns the Antioch church about what is going to happen. That's exhortation, providing direction. Comfort is providing help. The help came through what? The next part. Let's finish verse 28. Which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. What Luke is saying here, this prophecy came to pass. If a prophecy is a true prophecy, it will come to pass. And if the prophecy does not come to pass, it is not a true prophecy. Let's go one step further. If a prophet gives a prophecy and it does not come to pass, I would be very hesitant to listen to that prophet going forward. However, if a prophet gives a word of the Lord and it comes to pass, as this one did exactly, then yes, you heed the word going forward. Now, I noticed that I said that this prophecy was what? To prepare, part of exhortation. We see that in verse 29. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. We have a word for this. It's called an offering. The church in Antioch, they took an offering for the saints in Jerusalem to help them through the drought. Not just the poor saints in Jerusalem. Notice it said, which dwelt in Judea. This would be churches like Joppa, churches like Bethlehem, or all the cities where the churches were established in the days of the persecution of Saul of Tarsus. The saints in Antioch took an offering. What does this tell us? The church in Antioch was a giving church. For a church to be truly prosperous, it needs to give. We see what here? Seeding. the church in Antioch is seeding into the Jerusalem and the Judean churches. What's the end result? Acts 13. Why do you think the missionaries were sent out of this church in Antioch to continue to minister throughout the region? Because they gave seed in chapter 11. Therefore, they received the harvest, all the souls being won, in chapter 13. When one seeds, there is going to be a harvest. And part of that harvest is ministry and souls being won. Because the Lord trusted the Antioch church in chapter 11, he was able to trust the Antioch church in chapter 13. One level of trust opens the door to another level of trust. Verse 30, which also they did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul, which means Barnabas and Saul makes a road trip to Jerusalem to deliver the offering. Now, as we enter into chapter 12, remember that Saul and Barnabas are in town when all of this is happening. This is really the last chapter where Peter is going to be the main participant. From chapter 13 on, it really becomes more about Saul of Tarsus, the Apostle Paul. In chapter 12, the Jerusalem church is still doing well until verse 1. Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church. We now see the first true governmental persecution against the church. What we saw in Acts 8 and 9 was the religious establishment of Judea persecuting the church, with Saul being their main instrument. Now we have Herod, the civil ruler of Judea. He has realized that the church is a threat to him, so he decides to persecute the church. As mentioned, for the first time, a civil government is persecuting the church. Verse 2. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. James, the son of Zebedee, becomes a martyr for the faith. An honorable thing to happen to him. Verse 3. And because he, Herod, saw that it pleased the Jews, even then politicians and civil rulers liked doing things which were popular among the people. The ruling establishment, they saw that the people were happy that the church was being persecuted, so Herod decides to do what? He proceeded further to take Peter also. These were the days of unleavened bread. Verse 4. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter, or the Passover, to bring him forth to the people. So what do we see here? We see Peter arrested, and he is surrounded with a lot of troops. Why? If you go back to chapter 5, Peter's already been part of one jailbreak. Herod doesn't want another one. Little does he know that nothing can stop God when he wants to do a jailbreak. And we'll pick up with this in our next lesson.